everyone. I'm Kate Voss. I work at the Broad Institute. So raise your hand. This is going to be pretty interactive. Feel free to ask questions or shout things out. Don't throw things, please. It's kind of rude. But to begin with, raise your hand if you've ever seen an error. Okay. Raise your hand if you've seen an error this week. And raise your hand if you're frustrated. I know I have for all of these. So we spend a lot of time dealing with errors, and errors, microcopy, all these little things that just kind of, they get in the way. You don't really think about it more than when you're directly confronted with it. But these little things and other little bits of messages that users see and interact with really have a big impact on the user experience overall. Oh no, Microsoft PowerPoint stopped working. Well, luckily I'm using Google Slides. So I know error messages are not particularly thrilling. It's not exciting. It's not like UX, UI, but it is a part of both UX and UI. It's there's a lot to them, but they're also pretty simple. So there are many principles that can be applied to error messages as well as writing in general. So we'll talk about the 3 H's of errors. We'll talk about some examples because there are many examples of bad error messages and a couple good ones as well. And sometimes certain error messages have different strengths and weaknesses. And we'll talk about, how to make yours better. And there's also a pop quiz, so pay attention. Audience participation required. So, all right, so the 3 H's. Error messages should be humble, they should be human, and they should be helpful. Error messages are there for the user. It doesn't do anything for the computer program, so they should be designed to help the user. When a user hits an error message, they're frustrated. They've been trying to do something and suddenly they're stopped, and they don't necessarily know why. So the first step of a good error message is to apologize. Empathize with users. Say, oops, our bad, we're sorry about that. And then tell them what to do about it. Help them along to the next stage, but don't use computer language. Don't use, a system has invoked, terminal, failed, abort. And you're like, what? That's not helpful. That's not going to give them a sense for what, that you have any idea of how they're going to get to the next step. Remember that you care about your users. And users is a very broad term. Users are people who are using your software, using your website. Users are also your teammates who are, in case of developers, are looking through code and like, what were they thinking? What did they, what were they writing? But also, why did someone write this, document? Why did someone think this is important for someone to know? But users are also you. 6 months down the road, you're not going to remember everything you know today. So users are you, so be nice to future you. You'll thank past you later. There are 2 different types of errors. There are user errors and there are system errors. And user errors are obviously the user did something and something didn't go well. And then the system error, there are kind of 2 different types. There's your system did it and someone else's system did it. But to the user, they just see something's wrong and I don't know why. Some user errors are avoidable, and the best errors are the avoidable ones. One way to keep users from having errors is to help them along, specifically forms. Everyone's seen okay, name, great. There's an overlay here. I put in my name, my username, my password. Wonderful. And if the user doesn't follow the directions, then there's a little hey, by the way, some red helper text. Use at least 8 characters. This user did not use 8. Include both an uppercase letter and a number. So it's information that they need right when they need it to make sure that they don't get an error when they're trying to submit the form. But there are also many errors that happen outside of the user's control, ones that they don't have any access to, what happened. So this error message shows up when Tumblr is down. And it's cute, it's funny. There's a little cartoon of, some cartoon animal. But really it says, we may have forgotten to feed the wild beasts that roam our data center, which often results in unexpected downtime due to gnawing and or mutiny. Animal control has been alerted. If you take the time to read all of it, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. Something's going on and they're being cute about it. But, however, it doesn't say what is going on. It doesn't say when something is going to change or what the user can do about it, if nothing or something. So with that, without that indication to the user of we know what's going on and this is what to expect, you're just kind of sitting there like, well, okay, now what? This error comes up in a similar situation of like, oh no, the servers are down, but it's, still has the nice graphics, aesthetics are great, but it says we'll be back as soon as possible and check out our status log for updates. So it gives the user something they can do in the meantime while they're waiting. An exception has been thrown by the target of an invocation. We've all seen those, and they are as confusing as can be. But I'm sure this made sense to whoever wrote it because this was clearly written by a human, not by a computer. But it sounds like a computer. It's unclear what an exception or an invocation is, and what okay means. What okay, great. Okay, pat yourself on the back like I'm confused. Okay. You'll see this is from AMC, and it says, an error occurred while saving entities that do not expose foreign key properties for their relationships. The entity entries property will return null because So one of the problems in particular about this error message is that this is a website where you are buying things. And when you are buying things and spending money, everyone has that nervous, okay, I've entered my credit card, I just want everything. What if my Wi-Fi cuts out? And then I get charged twice, and then they don't believe me because it's lost in the server logs. And everybody has that feeling of anxiety. And so having jargon at a critical moment when things could go wrong and you could be charged money, or you could just get sent into loops and you don't know what's going on. Those are particular moments when error messaging is very important to the overall user experience. Those are the moments that users aren't going to remember.
And you only have 30 seconds to figure it out.
And you have 30 seconds to complete your order. You are in trouble and you don't know why. And there's actually, there's no call to action. Well, that's true.
That looks like something that was written by a programmer for another programmer, and they forgot to take it out before they...
That happens often. And oftentimes they think, oh, well, another programmer will understand this. And I'm betting that there are probably 3 people in the world who understand that.
The thing is, when he wrote it,
It was probably 3 then, too.
that was the only people he had to worry about.
Right, of course, yes.
The other thing is the people who do need to see that really need to see that. It's going to help them a lot, but it's not really the right audience for it.
Well, no, I mean, that's the log message, and it should have been caught by something else with that. Oh, snap.
We'll get there. And so you're starting to notice a pattern of things that are not so useful. Also, similarly unhelpful, an unknown error has occurred. Well, we know that something is not happening. Something is not right. We've got the nice X icon and some cryptic number, no indication of what it means. But the user doesn't know who's responsible. They don't know if they did something wrong, if the system that they're working with did something wrong, or something out of everyone's control, an act of God or, goddess, whatever. Something's wrong. But just the simple act of saying, sorry, we couldn't, whatever, taking responsibility. It's not, Netflix, this error message pops up when Wi-Fi connection is lost. Netflix didn't lose the Wi-Fi connection, but they're just apologizing that you're trying to do something and we can't do anything about it. We're sorry. It really goes a long way to making users feel better about the situation they're in. It's like saying, excuse me, if you step on someone else's foot, well, they put their foot underneath yours, so it's not really your fault, but it still goes a long way to just be polite about it. Twitter also has the same idea of, sorry, we did something wrong. Try sending your message again in a minute. So they say, okay, our bad, and here's what you can do about it. And clearly they don't know why something didn't happen, or likely they would have more information, or it doesn't matter. They're just saying, something's wrong, try it again later. Something went and got goofed. It's a little hard to read. So some people talk about the 4 H's of error messages, being humble, human, helpful, and humorous. And as I was talking before about the example with AMC, when it's a very critical moment to hit an error message, when you have an error message that's trying to be too clever and too cutesy, the effect is really lost because the user doesn't know what happened. The user doesn't know why. And it says there's a retry button, but it doesn't say what will happen if they retry. It doesn't, give any more information. It's too cute. And when you see something like that, when it's not enough information, the user says, "Oh, they don't even know what happened." So I don't really have a lot of confidence and trust in a software that doesn't even know.
Okay, there's the other problem of translation, which is super hard with humor because our humor is going to be different than other people's.
It's a very good point. That is, as the world is becoming increasingly globalized, English is not everybody's first language. It's often a second, third, fourth, or this is localized. So they're trying to translate this into Spanish or French or Mandarin or who knows what. So trying to transliterate that goofed in most other languages isn't going to mean what it means in English. It might mean something different in English in Australia or the UK or any of the other number of places that speak English. So that's a very good point. Also, problematic. What? It really is. It really is. I did have a lot of fun going through many Google searches of bad error messages. There are so many. So as again, it's not very useful. We really want to make sure something happened. Something happened. It could be, but it was something. The way that to start an error message is a short explanation of the error that anyone can understand. Few words of something happened. Okay, not great. An error occurred is the common one, a little bit inhuman, but something short, a very short statement that, say, a grandparent would understand or a grandchild would understand. Many users speak English as a third language, a fourth language, or just giving you something you can scan easily so that you say, "Oh, okay, this is what the error is," or "Oh, I don't know. Let me read on." So this error message it's not very human. It's not very clear. But it doesn't focus on what the user can do about it. It says, error, this person already has a selected role in this project. So this error message came from some software and you tried to do something, you got an error. And it says action failed. It doesn't say what to do about it. This is where really the documentation side and the user experience really connect here. All these error messages are opportunities. Your user is trying to do something and either they've done it wrong, something went wrong, they're not doing it the right way. And this is a chance to say, this is how you should do it instead. This is why you can't do it, and this is what to do instead.
I'd also say a bigger opportunity is to code the product so people can't do things that are unexpected. Like, don't show that role if they've already selected it and can't add it.
Sure.
That's another opportunity when we design to get away from these areas.
Definitely. Exactly. Like in the case of forms, if someone doesn't, if you need your username needs to be an email address, if it doesn't have the @ symbol, you can't submit the form until they have the correct input. Exactly. So designing around keeping people from making errors is the best plan. Oh, yes. So, sorry, Laura was saying that these it's best to design around and design to prevent people from taking actions that they shouldn't be able to do, keeping them from getting to errors by preventing them, and having helpful, not quite error messages like tooltips, so that they are able to they don't find themselves hitting errors. Sorry, you were saying.
Like if they're finding these error messages by coming in from not the main path, like that may indicate that they're not aware of certain functionality, so like you can kind of defensively correct them back onto the right path, and like teach them about a feature that they may not know exists.
Yeah, so using the error message as a chance for explaining additional features, like, did you know you can actually do this other new functionality? If someone's coming in at the wrong stage, they're coming into the middle of the form, making sure to catch them and put them on the path that they should be on.
Or the other way around is if a lot of people are running into the same error, then that can be a teachable moment for you to say, oh, hey, maybe we need to redesign this so they're not running into zero.
Also a good point, having error tracking so that you know what error messages people are hitting, how they got there, how often, and what they do afterwards is a really good way to, you can spot your error messages and see which ones can have the greatest impact. So this was an error message that I got just last week. I think it was on Slack. And they've got a little, frowny face. That's a nice photo, but it's a bit too big. Try one that's smaller and gives me the details. So very clearly it says, oops, sorry. It's a cute little emoji, but it also is in a critical moment of like, oh my goodness, I've just, crashed Slack. It says, what's going on? My photo is too big. First sentence. It's a nice photo, but it's a bit too big. And then it gives me the technical details of, okay, this is what the dimensions are. And then the buttons as well are very clearly cancel, okay, not going to do anything, and try a different image. So this gives me a clear what happened, what to do about it, and how to proceed right off of it.
Especially with the dang.
Exactly. I kind of laughed when I saw it, and then I screenshotted it. So kind of expanding for a moment from error messages onto general microcopy. Progress matters. When people are stuck waiting for things, everybody's always waiting. Knowing how much longer they have to wait is mentally much more relaxing. Being stuck in traffic and just not knowing how long you're going to be there, is it going to be 1 hour, is it going to be 2 minutes, is frustrating. But if you have an idea like, oh, okay, everyone's on their Google Maps or Apple Maps and saying, okay, it's just going to be a little bit longer, fine, I'll just wait. So by telling users what to expect, by setting that expectation, you can ease their mind. So in this error message, it says, this might take several minutes. So might is a bit vague, and several could be anywhere from 5 to 59 minutes, and that's a big difference, and I've had that error bar for a long time before. But this progress message says, okay, this is what it's doing. This is how, about 4 minutes, okay, we've got the visual, we've got the actual, size of items being moved. So it just, by giving more information and giving users an expectation when you can, it really makes a huge difference.
There's a big, one of the things I noticed about, especially that dialogue, is that it lies a lot.
Would you prefer some? That does happen, but it's more, I personally tend to trust it more than I do the several minutes.
That's true. I mean, I like that I see something's changing, so something's happening, but at the same time, please don't get my hopes up.
Fair enough.
From a tech standpoint, the one on the right is like an order of magnitude more work than the one on the left. Mm-hmm. Is that a consideration that you would put into that?
Definitely, and that's kind of the process of, like, if it's more effort to code to keep accurate. If it's something that people never see, then it's probably not worth their time. But that's kind of a product decision of, well, if it's something people see all the time and this is going to affect other things that they choose to do, then it's probably worth the time. Is it something that's going to have bugs very likely or touch different parts of code that could be very risky? Then it might be worth reconsidering.
There's also actual time versus perceived time, and there's clever little tricks you can do. It's if you're watching the clock, it's going to take exactly that long. But if you're distracted via the animation or some sort of something, it's a cool trick to have.
Definitely. We've all been distracted and mesmerized by the spinning beach ball before. Yep. And sometimes that works, and these days it just frustrates everybody.
Yeah, it can be difficult when you're talking about design, when you expect a custom sensitive help, which is where documentation can get into some issues, because we do like to be able to send, and you lost your,
Oh,
you're gonna have to
that's unfortunate.
you, as documentation specialist to agree, whatever you want to call yourself, the frustration often is, can I get my content sense of health into like a SaaS product? At my last company, we couldn't do that because there was so much that would need to go in that it actually made it too heavy and bulky, and it slowed down the runtime. And since most of the stuff, to a degree, was intuitive because it followed the same types of patterns as other products that were just as popular, they decided to have a health section that you could go out to look at your process, but you didn't have to click through to go to a specific page. So while it did roadblock the user a little bit to finding the answer sometimes, it made the product run more quickly.
All right, so one of the most common error messages or moments of error for websites are 404 pages. Here you can see this is Mozilla Firefox's 404. Whoops, what are you doing here? Did you make a left at the last URL instead of a right? No problem. Unless you want us to deal you in, here are some tips to get you back on your way. If you typed in the address, check your spelling, could just be a typo. If you found an issue with one of our websites, and on and on. And so it's technically very complete, but if I didn't have a 404 above there, chances are you wouldn't know this was a 404 page, which might have been their intent. However, with all of this, the graphic and the quite a bit of text for an error message, it's a little bit busy. It's a little bit too much to figure out, oh, I just need to research, and they've got a nice little plug like, oh, need a new browser, download Firefox. Good try. So it's a little bit hard to figure out what to do next, that you even have an error. You could have just thought, oh, I went to Firefox and some weird page.
Is saying 404 is that a known thing that you can use, or is
And so with that, I think that yes, you can say it, but you should not rely on it. So for example, GitHub, this is their page, their 404. It says 404. This is not the web page you're looking for. All right, it's cute, Star Wars. They've got their branding of the Octocat. But really, the main benefit of this is find code projects and people in GitHub. Like, here's your search bar. This is not what you're looking for. Here you can find it. So it gives you a clear, simple way to move on your way, which is really what error message should do.
This is actually a pet peeve of mine because 90% of the time it is the web page I'm looking for. I'm just not
Right,
seeing it.
and it's like, I know what I'm looking for, it should be there, what you're telling me.
I've had that with.
And, it's
well?
like-
So here's my nerd moment. That actually should be a 401, which is unauthorized, which is actually what that webpage is.
Yeah,
I
you're
actually
right.
wonder if that's.
Interesting. Because I've gotten it when I've typed in the wrong thing and also when I've not been authorized.
So that is also the actual 404.
Oh, I see. So they have both.
The 404 response, a non-authorized as well.
But that might be for
Like it's
security. Yeah, to keep people from discovering that a resource exists.
That's true. To break into one of the product managers in GitHub's mind, we would know these answers. But very interesting point. So.
The humor aspect is like, it's funny the first time, and definitely it's like everyone always seems to race to make the best joke for a 404 page, and that's funny once.
Right. And so I think that a lot of people rely on the humor to kind of brush over oops, it's an error, we're just going to make it humorous. Because then they're like, oh, well, if someone gets this error, and they're laughing to themselves while they write it, great. But the user who's facing it isn't going to think it's so funny the third, the fourth, the 50th time they've hit that error and they still don't know what to do about it. Okay, great, there's a cute dog or some cute mascot, but what do I do? As websites and software become, there are more and more tools for designing to avoid hitting errors, to keep people on the same track. A few more of these errors can be avoided, but they're always going to be there, whether they're a 404 or it's in command line. I've seen many of is not declared because it is not declared. Well, great. But that gives no one anything. So I think you were saying earlier that oftentimes that's something they need to see. Well, sometimes they need to see more. I think there's a lot of assumptions, too many assumptions go into it. So maybe they don't know what a 404 is, but I think just saying, this is not what you're looking for and here to move on, and maybe include the technical details, but also don't focus and rely on people's knowledge of the technical details in order to get on their way. All right, so, most of you in this room are some aspect of writer or have been around writing at some point. These are some of my favorite writing principles when it comes to error messages and other short microcopy. Put the most important information first. That's what people are most likely to read. They're not going to get through the whole paragraph because paragraphs are long, pages are long. We don't have time for that. And use fewer words. Don't say, when you could say, please, click here so that, da-da-da-da-da-da. No, just be a bit terse and to the point. That's what people are going to see. By putting the object first and the action second, you're going to be designing this so that users who are thinking, okay, I want to remove the photos. So it says, to remove a photo from this album, drag it to the trash. Okay, great. So this is how I remove it. If they see drag a photo to the trash to remove it from this album, they're going to think they're going to have to scan through and read a whole lot more before they find what they're looking for. And avoid passive verbs. We all know why. But they really should be avoided. Passive verbs should be avoided. And actually, I read a great tip on how to recognize passive verbs. If you add by zombies after the verb and it still makes sense, you're being passive. So the request form must be submitted by zombies. No, you must submit the request form. Don't be afraid to say you. Don't be afraid to, get a little personal. We, you. It goes a long way. It makes it sound less of a, this might take several minutes. None of that. Be direct. Don't be aggressive. Be friendly. All right. So in this example, how would you apply these principles? So it says a secure connection failed. Eggdrop.ch uses an invalid security certificate. The certificate is not trusted because the issuer certificate is not trusted. The certificate is only valid for star.wservices.ch, error code. Sec error, untrusted issuer. This could be a problem with the server's configuration, or it could be someone trying to impersonate the server. If you have connected to the server successfully in the past, the error may be temporary and you can try again later. Or you can add an exception. So, how could we improve this?
Renew your certificate.
That's true. How would you know what to do or how to do that? How can we make that clearer for users what that even means? Right. It says the details of the certificate is not trusted because the issuer certificate is not trusted. That's more details. What you want to say first is there's a problem with the server's configuration, or there could be someone trying to impersonate the server. That's a bit long. Any other ideas?
Well, you want to make sure they get the idea that it's not you, it's them.
That's true. It's not your computer's under attack. It's not, but they might be not who you think they are. A little OctoCat moment. These are not the servers you think they are. Maybe a bit more than that, but if you read that, then you would understand. Okay, something about a certificate. Does anyone actually know what a certificate is?
Yes.
All right. Real show of hands. Who actually knows? That's not everybody. I don't know, actually. Like, I sort of know, but I don't really know. And so chances, I've seen this error message, not this exact one, but chances are a lot of your audience doesn't know what a certificate is or what the implications are for it.
I don't, I wouldn't mind hearing what it is.
Yeah, so when you go to HTTPS, the address, and it's secure, basically there needs to be some third party somewhere on the internet, not the website you're going to, that certifies that that is the actual thing that you mean for it to be. And it costs money because someone has to have a registry for that. And so that certificate is the thing that gets sent when you actually request the secure HTTP.
It actually encrypts the data too. The certificate encrypts the data ensures that your data between your computer and that site is encrypted.
Okay, and that's what the HTTPS means?
Mhm.
Thank you.
And yeah, you can see up here they're trying to go to HTTPS.
So whenever I see this one, what I always do is I see who the certificate is really for, because that's, to me, that's the really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like this happened to me on a plane, I went to someplace and it said, no, the certificate is really for GoGo in-flight. I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I meant to go to GoGo in-flight instead.
Right.
So, I would say this certificate belongs to this domain, you're trying to reach that domain. If you know that they're the same, probably okay, maybe not.
We could have a UX talk on GoGo in flight. I'd be up for that.
Maybe we should invite someone. Yes, I've had similar experiences with them. So. To have a UX talk with GoGo in flight. That would be a long talk.
I always think the challenging thing about this kind of issue is, one in maybe 10,000 people, 1,000 people will know what this means, and a much smaller fraction will know what to do about it. I mean, it's basically this situation where almost everybody gets this is going to have two choices, which are either keep going even though it's unsafe, or abort. And the rest of it doesn't really matter to almost anybody reading this.
It's a very technical problem that most people don't.
That's right. It's a very technical problem that most users, in order to take action on it, don't need very much information, but they need enough information to take action. And then a lot of times, I like when they have like a below the fold, more details, or show me the technical junk, and that's where all the error code, sec error, untrusted issue, or like that doesn't need to be up there in the middle.
I've seen error messages like that where it basically just says, hey, there's something's weird with this website. Are you sure you want to
I think Google does that.
yes or no, and that's it.
Like, I like the pattern where they hide the, because like on this screen, like the only actionable thing is either get the heck out or click the blue link that is the global, like, take you there. And
Right.
That's a dangerous thing. So, like, yeah.
And even the blue link is in text speak.
Yep. Add an exception.
And that takes you to this bizarre
Oops.
screen that makes you know domain names and URLs and
Okay,
stuff
let's go.
that human beings should need to know.
I think a good start would just be the executive summary up top. Warning, this site may not be safe to visit.
Yep, exactly. Simple, to the point. It's few words. It's the important information. Warning, this isn't safe. Hang on, you should think about this, and then we'll tell you why and what we recommend you do, and which I think is what this is Safari. I think I'm biased. I like Chrome, and Chrome has a very good message of warning, this is not who you think it is. If you really want to go anyways, here's your button. But if you want to go back to safety, which is exactly what they call it, then
Make you click it twice.
do they?
Oh yeah.
I always proceed, so I never go back to safety. I live on the edge. What can I say? Rosie, you have something?
Yeah, I like the back to safety one. I think that's the appropriate language. But I think there are a lot of people who do appreciate the more technical stuff, though I feel as though a lot of people, if they're in that technical realm, are just going to go into the code area. That's what I see when my friends get error messages in the dev realm. They're just like,
If they want to get into the details, they'll inspect the page. They'll look at the stack trace. I don't know, more things.
Like what was it, like a more details kind of thing, where it's like, if you really care, you
Right.
can here and see all the real technical stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, error messages should have, if you really want to know what happened, like this disclosure thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
the dragon's mouth should open and all that.
Yep. All it comes spelling out. Well, so I.
The other says, aren't you sorry you did that?
I would like that. So while too many details and too much, tech speak can be unhelpful, it's also difficult when there's not enough. We've all seen this. Anyone with an iPhone, and I don't even have an iPhone, I've seen this. Software update failed, an error occurred downloading iOS 9. So it's obviously a little while ago. What's wrong with this?
The call to action doesn't make any sense.
Why is it
Tell you
taking you
why
to
or what
settings?
happened.
Yeah, it doesn't say why, it doesn't say what happened, it doesn't have any clear call to action of this is the safe path, this is the one we think you want to choose, like retry, or
In this case, it actually it looks like close is actually more emphasized than setting. So it's like instead of trying to go fix it, they just want you to give up.
right, exactly.
The passive voice.
Probably means there's not enough memory or your internet connection.
Yeah, it could have been either of them, but you have no idea which. And sometimes, I will say, sometimes the software doesn't know, and sometimes that's something they just can't know. They can't know whether it was memory or internet connection. That one they can definitely know, but they still have ways, as we've seen in other error messages, of saying it could be this or it could be that. This is what we recommend, and they can say that either with the words or having the retry button as a color of a nice blue with white lettering that says like you should retry it, and if you want you can close it. That's fine. It's a safe action, but having a recommendation. Good old Google. 500. That's an error. The server encountered an error and could not complete your request. If the problem persists, please report your problem and mention this error message in the query that caused it. That's all we know. Well, it's not my favorite. I mean, the robot does kind of crack me up a little bit. I also don't get it very often, so it's still a little bit funny. How could this be improved?
I feel like there was some snark when somebody was building it.
What, you mean a broken robot isn't sincere and genuine?
I think the robot's cute. I don't have a problem with the robot. I have a problem with that's an error. That's all we know.
It's almost
Yeah,
That's what I wanna know.
that's the real.
Sorry?
Is he disassembling himself, or is he trying to fix himself?
Or a bit of both.
It looks like he's not sure. It's not working. Whatever it is, it's not working.
Right, so there's a bit of snark to the humor. There's a bit of a unclear, what do I do? What's a 500? That's an error. Okay.
I mean, a lot of the problem is a lot of times like 500 tends to be like a catch-all where like we know there's like the known unknowns.
Right.
Where, like we know what errors we could get, and then anything we don't know about, we'll just throw it into a 500 error and leave it up to God. So like.
That's a good point.
Sometimes it's hard to know what the problem is. So you
Right.
can tell the user what the problem is.
Right. And so in the absence of being able to tell the user accurately, it's not great to lie, but it's better to tell them, like, okay, there is an error, now what? Because I think that's the biggest problem with this is now what? If the problem persists, report your problem. Okay, what does that link do? Report to who? Is it webmaster at?
What are you going to report? Like, I got a 500 error. Like, okay. What is that? Like, doing, like, there's no real information as to
Your
like.
standard user isn't going to know that they're going to need to recreate the steps.
Right, yeah.
Well,
What did you do
your
to get this
request
done?
also kind
Right,
of like,
exactly.
it's like I have done something wrong, like the server's fine.
Right. Right. There's a little bit of that accusatory. It was your request, I've worked with so many developers that I've learned that you don't say you broke it. It is broken. That is the state of things. The request failed. That happened. It doesn't matter who did it. It's just that's what happened. And if it was important to say like try your request again, okay, great. But it could not complete your request. That definitely has a bit of a
Everybody else is just not.
yeah, exactly. It was too busy working on everyone else's. It didn't get to yours. Exactly.
This particular error, when I see it, is that I know what it means. It means we don't
know.
there is nothing you can do about this, sorry. I mean, we can't do anything, you can't do anything, that's, wow.
Is it like
I
weird?
agree with that more than that's an error.
Yeah.
Or that's all we know, but just like reading this.
Yeah.
Right, but they need to say, this sucks for both of us.
And that's where the human side.
I'm sorry, this is how we got here.
Yeah, I'm sorry we're here, but how can we move on from this? And maybe that's like, well, I don't know. But sharing that,
I don't know what happened.
right.
Let's give up.
Yeah, that empathizing of like, we're sorry, that we failed you, but, we'll do better next time. Something that shares that you're in the same state with them. No, snark, no accusing, the humor, like I think the robot's, humorous enough. That's an error is a bit, a little bit rude, a little condescending. What? Oops is great.
Also, even just have something that says, we've notified our, whoever staff and we're looking into it, we'll resolve it.
Even if it's not true.
Someone will find it eventually.
Somebody will find it when they're in some log someday in 3017 they'll find it. Exactly. And that is, again, one of those user expectations, just sometimes lying to your users is a little bit better, saying like, oh, the progress bar, like I swear we're making progress, even if it's going to take a while. That kind of white lie to make people feel better about the situation. There's nothing you can do. Don't tell them you're going to do, something that they can expect. Just say, we're working on it, even if you're not working on it.
One of the biggest companies in the world. If you take 5 minutes and tell us.
That's the other reason this particular message annoys me. It's like, you're not even trying.
And so you're losing confidence. You're, that confidence of like, yeah, it's Google. Like, oh, but come on. Like, and then, the downloading. And then when you're the error when trying to download the update failed, you're like, Apple, like really? This should be important to you. Like, come on. And those feelings matter. Feelings matter, everyone. And that's one thing that, the way that humans and computers and software and systems interact, you humanize them. And so when your error is rude and inhuman, you feel like, ugh, okay, fine, snarky, Google. Exactly.
So that's when you get snarky reviews on your apps.
A minor counterpoint is that when we do have, for instance, I have iOS, and when you are sending a text message that is not quite going through, they still give you a progress bar to kind of pretend it's going through until the very end. But if you've used text messages more than 5 times, that's what's happening. And so it's almost worse than just being real about it. So you can kind of go too far.
That's a good point. Definitely. I'm not an iPhone user. Androids. But that's a good point. If users are going to figure it out, it's not good to be caught in a lie. But white lies they're okay. Every now and then. Progress bars are hard. Progress is hard. All right. This one's all right. I think this is the final pop quiz. So this one's the advanced. We haven't talked about it yet. Good luck. All right. So enter your email address. An email address must contain at least one character. Which I realized later, I was like, well, no, just one. But okay, fine. And then you have the email address test _explain example.com submit. What's wrong with this? That's true. It does have unnecessary amount of words.
All of them. All you need is placeholder text.
It's true. Also true. If you have example at something.com in the field before you click, and then an helper text underneath, if with the instantaneous validation, things like that. There are ways to avoid this. What else is wrong?
Are you saying the user entered this, or this is the example they put in the box?
The user entered this and then assumedly clicked submit. Yeah.
So I can't see, is that a valid email address?
No. No. So they didn't include the @ symbol. So that's the error they got. But why is this a bad error message?
I guess because it almost doesn't really relate to. I mean, it does kind of relate, but the sentence sounds like it's like, in an ideal world.
That's true.
How does that apply to me?
It's true. It doesn't say what caused the state of error. It also doesn't have an icon, but that's not the big one. And it doesn't say this is an error. This is how you fix it.
An existential message.
Exactly.
Philosophical topic today.
Please enter a valid email address.
All right. What? Oh, please enter a valid email address would also be a better error. I'm guessing no one in this room is, but when I gave this talk last, it relies on the color red. There's approximately 5% of the population that's colorblind, and the most common color blindness is red-green color blindness, which unfortunately are the most common colors used for error and success. That's problematic, and one of my coworkers was colorblind. So it's about 8% of men and 0.5% of women, and that's a big problem. One time we gave a piece of work to a developer and said, okay, match the colors. And he's like, I can't see these. And we're like, oops. So having some way of, other than the color that says, clearly this is an error. Did that go through? There we go. So these, tooltips say, okay, this field is required. It has red, but it also uses other visual indicators to say that there is an error and what to do about it, rather than relying on the fact that the user is going to notice when they click submit that a new message has showed up, which is not clearly an error. There's no icon, it says error, it says warning. It doesn't have any of the words that we translate to as, hang on, something went wrong.
Does that really indicate error though? Like, from a colorblind perspective, I mean, that's gonna be all gray.
That's true. Or some gray, but yeah.
It's just like, you're getting a pop-up on a field, but that doesn't necessarily say error.
And in this situation, there are errors on the page. Yeah, so that one's the subtext. I'm a fan of the icons. I think icons are a quick way of, that's why we now have icons everywhere. They're a quick way of identifying, good from bad, whatever you need. And so having an error icon next to it might be a bit redundant, but having an icon somewhere I think would make this clear. But they do say there are errors on this page, so it doesn't rely on that you can see that it's red or that you can see that these boxes are red. But it says there are errors, fix them before continuing, and it says which fields are required so that as you go up, you don't need to rely on, they can see, that they have very clear just-in-time information. All right, let's see. Oh, and this one isn't a good example of it, but another, thing about user input, and when a user has put something into a form and there's an error, everyone's been there where they filled out an entire page, they click submit, they've gotten the captcha wrong, their password doesn't, conform to the regulations, they click submit, and it's gone. And it's very frustrating and aggravating. So whenever possible, again, with good design, making sure to avoid errors, but also do smart things in the case of an error. Like a user error, preserve their input. Make sure that things don't crash and blow up and they don't accidentally get charged twice with their credit card. Things like that will really help user experience. All right. In summary, the next time you write an error message or any kind of microcopy or documentation in general, acknowledge what the situation is. Acknowledge there was an error and apologize. Even if it wasn't your error, just being human to other people will help them feel like you are human, even if you're via computer. Explain as much as you know, and if you don't know anything, as we talked about, sometimes it's good to explain, I don't know anything. Sometimes it's good to lie and pretend you know something, and then be helpful. Even if there's nothing you can do about it, letting them know there's nothing they can do about it rather than sitting there clicking refresh 15 times a second, when they're trying to get the page to refresh, but it's just not going to be available for a couple hours. It'll make them happier. Also remember that your brand, your voice comes through in all of these error messages. So you saw the Trello, dogs, the Octocat on the 404 and the 401 page. All of these things have the branding of the software of the system. And so by having this, by building confidence, the audience's confidence in you, this is also marketing. This is also your communications. It all matters. Oh no! We all remember the blue screen of death. Guess that's my end of my presentation. Thanks, everybody. I didn't know what to do for a last slide. So I work at the Broad Institute. It's pretty cool. We're hiring for everybody. So come work. The end.